and welcome to Podtoid. We're your host. I am CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
And this is episode 397. We are down exactly one Occams today. He is visiting with his family in Mississippi. We should be able to... Yeah,
all the good people are gone.
We should be able to press on without him, but I wish him luck. I've been following his trip on Twitter, and it's been an endless stream of alcohol pics and keeping tabs on how much Fox News his parents watch.
I was reading just 20 minutes ago an article about Fox Brain. About it's basically and it was like an article in The Guardian, I think. Other newspapers are available, which was basically saying that about how many families across America are just not talking to each other anymore because it's just easier than getting into arguments about things they've seen on Fox all the time.
Pretty much.
Isn't that happening in the UK, though, with Sky News and probably even the BBC now, because that's not very impartial anymore?
No, basically, like you could just summarise it with saying that's happening in the UK with Brexit, isn't it? It's like both America and the UK have got their own individual issues, which are just dividing like the families, and so people are just saying like, and this article had termed it Fox Brain, where people were saying like, oh, my dad's caught Fox Brain or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, in my family, anytime a political discussion starts, we immediately put the kibosh on it because it's not going to end well. Because it's mostly just all of my family versus me, and I don't go down without a fight. So we've just kind of avoided to get in talking about that.
And you shouldn't go down without a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've turned into a totally different podcast already. But you should be as annoying as possible about the thing you believe in.
Yeah, like me and my dad will have very, very heated arguments about politics, and my mum will just sit there and be like, "Can we please talk about something nice?" I'm like, "No, mother, we must talk about this."
That's a very mom thing to do. It does make sense that Occam's parents are watching a lot of Fox News as they are in their 80s. And I think when you're that old, you're required by law to watch it all day, every day. Either way, he'll be back next week, which means one of us will have to make the JonBenet Ramsey jokes for the show on this episode. But we should have a good show for you today. We're going to talk about some games, some Disney, and a whole lot of Star Wars. But first, I want to kick things off with a story about Walmart shoppers. Do you have Walmarts in Germany, Charlotte?
No, but there are Asda's in the UK, which are owned by Walmart. So we have similar things in the UK, but not in Germany. Nope.
Okay. Well, hopefully you don't get any shoppers like the two I'm about to tell you about. This is a store in Wisconsin. Got these two shoppers the other day. According to WBAY Action News 2, 46-year-old Lisa Smith and her son Benny Van, which is the exact name you would describe to someone who does the stuff he does in the story, went to a Eau Claire, I think that's how you pronounce it, Walmart on Wednesday night and started causing a ruckus. According to the report, the two entered the store with their dog Bo, who they left off the leash and allowed to run wild around the store. As the dog went to do what dogs do, the mother started going around to store displays, tearing them apart and placing the pieces into her shopping cart. When store officials asked her to leave, she complied and then went outside to the parking lot where she started practicing karate moves. When police arrived at the store, they found the woman in the entrance calling for her dogs. The cops arrested her, but not without a fight. And when she finally got into her cop car, she allegedly kicked out a window. Meanwhile, the son Benny was causing his own problems. Store officials say he was in the clothing department where he stripped down completely naked, exposed himself to several people around him, and then tried to get dressed with Walmart clothes taken off of the rack. When he tried to walk out of the store, the cops stopped him, and when they approached him, they said he was disorderly and tried to run over a cop with a scooter. Now, it doesn't specify which scooter it is, but I'd like to imagine it's one of those incredibly slow shopping cart scooters that he just was coming at them at a mile an hour or something. Store employees were able to track down the dog, saying that he was about to leave with a box of cornbread mix in his mouth. The son was charged for disorderly conduct, theft, lewd, and lascivious behavior. The mother was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. The dog was let off with a warning.
Sorry, just remind me, because I think I missed that. Where did this happen?
This happened in Wisconsin. I think it's called Eau Claire, Eauclaire. Anyways, yeah.
It sounds like a severe case of fox brain.
It sounds like a severe case of meth.
You know, and calling your dog Bo, like
same user base.
I just know that dog is. I just know that dog is like wearing a neckerchief, which is just like one of my least favorite things that people do with dogs.
No,
you know what I mean. I just know that dog is wearing like when they give the dog like a little neckerchief, like a little red neckerchief, so it looks like it's, I don't know, from a farm or something. That's like one of my least favorite dog tropes.
No, I love it. Like,
really?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Charlotte here. I have done that with my dog Kane already a few times.
But there's like worse that you can do with a dog, like put it in like little costumes and stuff like that. A neckerchief is harmless.
The worst is like those like spiked collars, trying to make your dog look badass. No.
Especially when it's on a dog that is not badass. Like when you see a spiked collar on a Pomeranian, you're like, come on, what are you doing?
It's not one or the other. I hate those things too, but I also hate when people put a little neckerchief on a dog. So
the thing
that's a terrible story about weird people.
The thing I hate more than that is when people put those like little harnesses around the body of their dog that makes it look like something is riding them. So it's like an action figure riding the dog. Like that's the worst to me. Like, come on. What are you doing?
The only other thing that I find equally as irritating is a child in a tuxedo. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look right.
I grew up in a Catholic family. I've been to plenty of Catholic weddings, and even as a child, I had to be dressed up in that. So
yeah, but was it like a suit, a little suit, or was it a tuxedo? Did it have like a bow tie and a cummerbund?
Yeah, the full-on little bow tie and everything. It was awful. I hated it.
A child in a tuxedo looks like a ventriloquist dummy. Like, let's be honest. Yeah. So I just want to start off with that story. Get the mood right before we get talking about games, and I'm gonna go ahead and get us started off with that. This past week, actually the past 2 weeks, I've been diving into Dragon Marked for Death, which is the new co-op action RPG from Inti Creates. I believe it's exclusively for Nintendo Switch. It released earlier this year in a kind of a piecemeal fashion where you could buy 2 characters to play the game through for $15, and then the other 2 characters were DLC for $15, and then there were additional DLC missions for $10, bringing it to, what would that be, $40, give or take. And just last month, at the end of last month, they had the retail release, which kind of combines everything into one package. That's the copy I got, and so I've been playing. Spent the last 2 weeks playing through it, and I was shocked with how disappointed I was with this game, because Inti Creates is generally one of the more reliable developers out there. For this to be the final product was not anything that I was expecting, especially coming after something like Bloodstained, Circle of the Moon. That can't be right. That's a Castlevania title name. Anyways, their little Bloodstained game, their Azure Striker Gunvolt, just basically anything they've done before this has been the absolute tops, Mighty Number 9 aside. And so for this to be the end product was just disappointing. And I think part of the reason is that this game has been in development since the PSP. It was originally going to launch on the PSP. Here we are 10, 12 years later, and it's finally coming to Switch, and I still think this game feels as though it was built for the PSP. There's no local couch co-op, so you can't just, break the 2 Joy-Con off and have a player take control of each of them. If you want to do co-op, people need their own Switch and own copy of the game. And then the controls will limit themselves to only the L and R button, even though there's the ZL and ZR button, which pretty much mimics what the PSP had because it only had the 2 shoulder buttons. And so, after about 15, 20 hours of this game, I kind of realized that even though Dragon Marked for Death switched platforms at least twice to get to where it is now, the base design of the game still feels as though it was made for that first system. This definitely feels like it was made for a PSP, the type of game you would buy on PSP, the type of game you'd play online with PSP, but released on the Switch without using any of the hardware options that that the Switch has to offer. It really misses the point of Nintendo Switch. I'm sure it can be a great game with 4 people playing at once, taking down these ridiculously difficult boss battles, but God, it needs a lot of work, and I don't know if they're going to do more updates to make it more friendlier. I certainly don't think they're going to get rid of the requirement to have more than one person own a copy of the game. But all in all, I was just kind of disappointed with it coming out of playing it, because I was so hyped for it. And when I played it at PAX with another person, it was so much fun. And then get the final product and be like, oh, yeah, no, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
And as for the idea of them doing anything more with it, if the same people have been working on it for all this time, chances are that they just want to get as far away from that thing as possible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. They have done some updates to bring it up to, I think it's at version 2.01 right now. But it still needs more work. It still needs a lot more updates to really get it to a point where I would not only be happy to recommend it, but happy to keep playing it, because I don't want to touch it again. It's one of those types of games.
That's disappointing, because obviously, as you said in your review, which I checked out, you're such a fan of all of Inti Create's catalog.
Yeah. I mean, Blaster Master Zero, that I never played the original Blaster Master when I owned an NES. And playing Blaster Master Zero really makes me wish I did, because I can definitely see why there is such a passion for that title that I'm sure very few people have even heard of. So yeah, that was my last 2 weeks. But Chris, you have been going through, I'm going to assume this is the new Power Rangers fighting game that you reviewed last week.
Yeah, Battle for the Grid. And my review's already up there. It's a game that has like a really solid fighting engine behind it. It basically mimics Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which many people consider like one of the greatest fighting games of all time. And it mimics it pretty closely. It adds its own ideas, like the idea of you calling in the Megazords and the giant robots. So you just get these huge fists just coming into battle, which is quite funny. Mm-hmm. But the problem is it's a low budget game, and it's low priced, which is fair enough. And you shouldn't, like I said in my review, you shouldn't knock a game for having a low budget, but it's overwhelmingly cheap. Like the menus are incredibly static, very mobile game. It's got like this one kind of looping piece of music that's kind of, repetitive cheese metal. And then like, although there's there's a small roster of characters, but so many of them are just the Rangers, so many of them are just like characters in the suits. There's only one or two of like the monsters from the series. Mm-hmm. And like you get into the battle and the fighting's pretty good. Like it's not great, but it's that simplified fighting style that they use in games like Blade Strangers and SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy, mm-hmm. where all the buttons are like automatic combos and you have a designated special move button. So it's really easy to get into, but at the same time, there's some really interesting combo potential in there. It has tag moves and it has assists, and you can juggle opponents, tag someone in, keep the combo going. And all that's way better than you'd expect like a Power Rangers fighting game to be. You'd think it'd just be kind of some cheap cash in. But it seems like they really wanted to make a game that almost like Dragon Ball Fighters would hook not only Power Rangers fans, but just fighting game fans. But they just don't have the money to make that game. And they are adding stuff to it down the line. But unfortunately, the product as it is right now, it belies its budget. And although the game itself is pretty good, there's such a lack of pizzazz and a lack of flash, and just little things like when a fight's over, all the characters on the screen just vanish. Like they're just there and they're just not there on the screen anymore. Stuff like that. And the game's kind of celebrating an anniversary. So I'm not sure why more wasn't pumped into it, especially if they're going to go as far as they got like Marvel versus Capcom experts in to kind of work with them on the gameplay. And if they're going to go as far as that to really push for like a great fighting game, it's amazing that they're then like, oh, but we'll keep the roster really small and we can't really afford to do any shading on the background. Some of the backgrounds kind of still look like prototypes. Like,
I was going to ask, is there like a Ranger variety at least, or is it just like the Mighty Morphin stuff?
Well, here's the thing. I don't really like Power Rangers. Like, I didn't watch the show.
Yeah.
That has no inkling on whether I can review the game or not. It's irrelevant. But I'm aware that there's like been 30 seasons and they keep changing kind of the themes and the characters and the bots. From what I can tell, it's a handful of old stuff. I recognize like Goldar and Red Ranger and Pink Ranger and Yellow Ranger. And then there's a couple from SPD, is it called? Power Rangers SPD. And then there's some characters I totally don't recognize at all. There's like a Black Ranger who's got like grenades and like a machine gun and stuff. So I don't know who that is.
That must be from the American-made season.
It's genuinely like a game that has potential, but it kind of feels unfinished. And I don't just mean when people go, oh, they've not put enough content in here, although that is also a problem. There isn't enough content in there. Mm-hmm. But it feels unfinished in all ways. The credits run in silence. There's no music over the end credits, stuff like that. Some of the stages don't look finished. And it is a cheap game, but as I said in my review, more than anything, it's kind of disappointing because I think they could have really been onto something with this. But it sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole because I ended up like going back and watching like the intro sequences for all the Super Sentai shows from like the 70s and 80s from Japan. Because like I say, I wasn't a fan of Power Rangers. I'm aware of it because I soak this fucking stuff up like a sponge, but I didn't really like watch the show myself. So I watched these old 70s Super Sentai intros, and fucking hell, that looked like a good show. Like, I really like the idea of them changing the theme. So like one time it's like dinosaurs, and then another time they're like aliens, and then another time they're all based on samurai. And I think that's kind of cool. They have this really weird gimmick where on every title sequence, although they changed the actors playing the Sentai Rangers, whoever was the female one was always shown swimming in like her title sequence. So the seasons would change. Like this time the guy's on a BMX and another guy's on a motorbike. And then in season 2, like one guy's in a car and another guy's practicing like sword fighting. But every season when it shows you the girl ranger, she's in a swimming pool, just like doing laps.
Sounds about right.
I just thought it was weird. I just thought it was, and then they just run through a lot of explosions. I was just baffled by how long it had been going for like.
Yeah, I watched the original Super Sentai back to back with the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and just seeing like the contrast of various scenes used in both shows, and then the context of them, like the fight between like the Red Ranger and the Green Ranger is super grim dark in the Super Sentai stuff. And then just going to the Mighty Morphin stuff, it's so cartoon Saturday morning tier stuff. It's ridiculous.
Well, in the original that it was based off of, I think the Yellow Ranger was still a boy in that version, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was a dude.
Charlotte, do you remember when Power Rangers blew up here?
I never liked Power Rangers. I don't know why, but some of the more stereotypical... Like, I never liked stereotypically girlish stuff as a kid, but some of the more boyish stuff freaked me out, like wrestling and Power Rangers. I just blocked it all out. Don't know why, but I recall it happening, but I never really watched any of it.
I remember
probably for the best.
I was still at school. Where it blew up about 93, 94 here. And
I was born in 1992, so...
Yeah, same. Sorry for
But we got all the other seasons after that. So, and I guess they ran it on Nickelodeon and stuff, that was all like after my time. But all I know about this game, like to put the full stop on it, is like there's no Rita Repulsa in it. And if there's like, I don't see the point.
That's upsetting.
Well, yeah, like exactly. It's like you can't. She's not in it in like. Well, there isn't a story mode. They're adding it later, but
okay.
Yeah. But she's not there as a playable character, not even the Elizabeth Banks version from the movie. So, like,
which would have been the perfect one.
Point. Pardon?
Yeah,
that would have been the perfect one. Like, Elizabeth Banks in the Power Rangers movie is made for a fighting game. She's right. She's a former Ranger in that.
Maybe if you stump up some money down the line, they'll put her in there. I don't know.
They honestly probably couldn't afford either of them.
That could be it.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, but it's not entirely outside of the realm of Power Rangers games because, like, I don't think there's been a single good one. Like, they've all been bad.
Yeah.
Even the early ones that were just kind of beat 'em ups were really shitty beat 'em ups.
Yeah, there was like a scrolling brawler was like the first game, wasn't it?
On the SNES.
Yeah,
I liked that one. I own that. It was whatever. It wasn't like a terrible game, but it was an okay beat 'em up.
You like it because it was like
probably...
the Beast. That's what's going on there.
Okay. You know what? It does have a lot of contrast to Altered Beast. It has the same, like, you get the power up, and then you do the Mighty Morphin like transformation stuff. I liked it, but I wouldn't call it a bad game. But according to you, Altered Beast is bad, but I don't agree. So
according to a lot of people,
well,
I mean, I think for me the problem with making a Power Rangers fighting game, especially one that's supposed to celebrate the entire franchise, is do you really want to make a game where it's like, okay, well, here are 6 Red Rangers you can choose from, 4 Blue Rangers you can choose from, 6 Pink Rangers, 5 Black Rangers. It's just the same colors over and over again. Costumes that don't very much vary. I mean, you're going to have 30 colors of playable.
There's so many villains that they can run with.
That's the thing too. Yeah,
but they haven't. I guess they've gone with more Rangers because they're similar character models.
Probably.
In a way.
There even are like a whole bunch of different types of Power Rangers. Like there's that weird grenade dude that you're talking about. There's like the Gold Ranger, the White Ranger, the Green Ranger. Like there's all these weird, unique Rangers that they could have like picked and pulled from, and throw in like the classic Red Ranger. And then as Chris said, put in a bunch of enemies. But the problem is they need a budget, and to really throw in that fanfare of Power Rangers. Giant Megazords and like sparks flying and all the high flying moves and explosions and stuff to capture that theme, that cheesy ass theme of Power Rangers in video game form. It's actually quite a task. So
right.
All right, Dan, we're gonna go ahead and move on to you. You have been diving back into Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah. I've been replaying that recently. I'm not too far in. I'm only in chapter 2, which still a beefy amount. I'm like, I'd say 20 hours in. And this time around, I'm going for 100% completion. And it's a task. I think there's like something like 90 challenges. You have to skin and hunt every animal. You have to collect every collectible, do every side mission, do every honor mission, which is like unique missions for various characters around camp. It's a lot. I think it's like over 100 hours if you're going after the Platinum Trophy. The thing, though, that I'm really enjoying that kind of surprised me, when I went into replaying it, I thought for sure the early prologue stuff would like bore me half to death.
Yeah.
But going back, I'm finding so many like interesting little things and clues and hints towards things that are going to happen that I missed, obviously, the first time around, as well as just like a ton of new stuff as well. Just taking my time in the environments this time around. Probably one of my favorite things that I'm picking up on a lot more now is like some of the NPC banter. I robbed this like shop in Valentine, and one of the deputies, his literal quote was, "We're country strong in this town," as he was trying to shoot at me. Just that quote of "we're country strong" made me burst out laughing. And as for the challenges, like some of them are pretty straightforward. You shoot X amount of birds while on a moving train. Then there's like the gambling ones, which are awful because it's mostly just luck-based stuff, like win 3 games of dominoes in a row, which can take anywhere from 10 minutes to hours. In my case, I listened to a whole 3-hour Giant Bomb cast before finally completing that challenge.
Oh, jeez.
My luck was just that bad. I almost screamed because I almost won like two or three times on the 3rd game and then lost. And then you have like some of the funnier, more interesting ones, like catching fish while being on the railroad tracks on a bridge before a train comes. And then you have to catch 3 fish while standing in a specific spot. And you just hope to God a train doesn't come while you're trying to catch those fish. That stuff is pretty good. I wish there was more of that. But it's been interesting going back into it, and I'm having a lot of fun.
Nice.
What I'm not looking forward to, though, is the online. Because I still need to go back to the online, I guess, reach cap level, I guess, and get the trophy for that, for the platinum. And I am not looking forward to that, because we're 6 months now into this supposed beta, and we still don't have a clear idea when a full release will happen, or if there even is one in the works, or what's going on there. And it's been such a slow drip feed of content. Just like, here's some new clothes. I don't know, here's a new PvP mode. That's been about it for about 6 months, or some really brain dead fixes.
Maybe it'll be like Fortnite, that it just never leaves beta.
That's the impression I'm getting. Like, it's still a beta.
Charlotte, let's go ahead and end with you. You have been playing just kind of an older indie game, Pony Island.
Yeah. So I'm playing that in preparation for my other podcast I take part in, Cane and Rinse. And it's so you're playing an arcade game, but there's sort of the game starts to corrupt, and you get sort of behind the scenes, and you can see that there's like a fight going on between these demonic powers and then somebody who's trying to sort of like take control of the story and make it expose the evil. I don't know. It's a really complicated, weird story, but there's not a lot to the actual game. You're just playing as this pony, and it has to run along and sometimes do little shooty sections. And then occasionally you have to solve puzzles as you get into the mainframe, so to speak, and trying to sort of reveal the game for what it is. It's really interesting. There's not a whole load to the game, really. As I say, it's not mechanically complicated, but it's really sort of, it reminds me a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's in the sense of there's not so much jump scare way, but there are moments that just come at you out of nowhere, and it's like really creepy.
It's got like a really unique, very, very old school look to it, hasn't it?
Yeah. And you also win these tickets. I think it's sort of an internal trophy system in that when you do something to sort of trick the game, you can collect tickets. Haven't done that so much yet, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but there was one moment when I was solving a puzzle and I guided one of my there's a bit where it's not much of a spoiler really. There's a bit where you're playing the actual game as you're supposed to instead of this weird corrupted version. And there's just one square on the screen that is obviously sort of graphically doesn't look right. And if you accidentally guide one of the characters onto that, then suddenly stuff starts going on the screen. I was like, whoa, what's going on? So there's like little moments like this where, you know, if you notice that something's not quite right and then you explore it, you get rewarded for it in terms of seeing more content. But yeah, so far in my first playthrough, I've not been that clever and I've not found that much. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a bit annoying, like these sorts of games where you have to sort of, there's bits where there's like a row of enemies to shoot, and some of them, if you shoot them, it's like instant reset, and others you have to shoot. And so if your cursor is even slightly off, then you have to reset, and that's kind of annoying. But it's a very, like, every single run where that happens is only about 2 minutes anyway, so resetting's, it's not a big deal, but for me, I don't like games that are like that. It kind of annoys me a bit, but it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that bit to me sounds like the pixel hunting in the first-person view from Metroid Other M, where it's like, it can take you 10 seconds to do this, but you have to look at this exact tiny little part of the room, and if your cursor is off even a little bit, it won't register. And so it doesn't reset you, but it can just add time and time and time onto these fucking hide-and-go-seek parts of that game. So that's the first thing that popped in my mind when you told me that. I know that Pony Island was like really big a few years ago when it first came out. Well, maybe not really big, but you know, it was the kind of the small niche game that everyone was talking about. So and very much probably in a way. I'm all right to spoil Doki Doki Literature Club, right? That's pretty old now. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say it sort of was in a way a precursor to the extent to which Doki Doki Literature Club breaks the fourth wall. So like at the end, if people don't know, maybe switch off if you don't want to know this, but in Doki Doki Literature Club, one of the last things you have to do is delete a game file. And I don't know if you have to end up doing that in Pony Island because I haven't finished the game yet, but it is very fourth wall breaking. Like that's the fancy thing behind it. So I wonder if there was a bit of influence going on there, because it talks directly to the player, which is off screen, the person playing the arcade cabinet, but also really directly to you. So when there's all this crazy shit going on, that can get quite creepy.
I cannot believe you just spoiled Doki Doki Literature Club for me. I was just about to play it.
I got to admit, I actually took my headphones off because I haven't played it.
I gave people plenty of warning.
Yeah, that's why I took my headphones off, and I waited until like the little microphone disappeared from next to your icon.
It's been well spoiled for me by now. It's got kind of like the secret in God of War that I haven't quite reached yet. Like that's, yeah, it's been. Twitter is the worst thing in the world. I'm just gonna go with that.
Hey, I still don't know what happens at the end of Mass Effect 3, and that's been like fucking 6 years or something. So yeah.
It's probably best that you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
You are listening to Podtoid.
That is it for games, but we still have some headlines to cover. It is time for the news. There is a lot of Disney-based stories to go over, but real quick, I just want to relay to all of you that Ashley Birch, who you know from Hey Ash, What You Playin' and numerous video games, is returning as Tiny Tina in Borderlands 3, which is awesome. I'm very happy for her.
Mm-hmm.
And very jealous of her success, and I kind of hate her.
Damn.
Yeah.
That went places.
Wow.
Yeah. Why should she be so successful? Why? Because she tries? God. Jeez. So the nerve of some people to actually give a damn and assert themselves. Anyways, not a lot happened last week. I hope that any of you who have lived with an embarrassing PlayStation ID for more than a decade were finally able to change it. I know my friend was looking to change his because he set it back on the PlayStation 3 right before he went into the Coast Guard. So it's Coast Guard themed and probably sounded cool when he was 21, but it's actually pretty lame now. So any of you guys change your PlayStation IDs?
I made mine when I was 14, so mistakes were made, first off. But unfortunately, I don't think it's worth it, because right now, if you do change it, it can downright, according to like the PlayStation press release, it can like break some games.
Oh.
Certain downloadable content won't work on various titles. Basically, anything before April 2018, I believe, could have problems, whether it's connecting to multiplayer, whether it's tied to trophies, or even like downloadable content may not straight up work.
Oh, my God.
Dear.
I mean, I don't think it's worth it. Like, my username is pretty bad right now, but I'm going to wait until they further develop that, because from what I understand, the PlayStation Network ID was so deeply embedded into the network side of things.
Mm-hmm.
It was embedded into like your purchases and everything. So to change that can potentially break a lot of things. But from what I understand, any game past April 2018 should work fine if you change your name. So
I really, really need to change mine because mine is Rick and Morty themed. That's how bad it is.
I thought I made a mistake by being Sonic themed, but you made the worst mistake, it seems.
Nope,
I
Sonic's
was
worse.
23 when I made this. Why did I make such a mistake? I have no excuse. Oh my God.
Is it Pickle Rick themed?
Hmm?
Is it Pickle Rick, like a joke or something?
It's just squanchy.
Oh.
I don't even know what that is. I'm too old. My ID is Power Rangers 93. So,
Wow. Huh. And you say you're not a fan.
But if you want to know who Squanchy is and why it's so embarrassing, I think the first time you ever see Squanchy in Rick and Morty, he is doing autoerotic asphyxiation in the cover.
I think he sounds like a pretty cool dude, to be honest.
I mean, Rick and Morty is like a guilty pleasure at this point.
Oh,
It's like I still enjoy the show, but like that fan base is oof.
Yeah. So going beyond that, the biggest stories of the week actually happened over the past 3 days with the annual Star Wars celebration. Disney brought the heat, showing off trailers for a new movie and a new game, but I actually want to start with the announcement of Disney Plus. This is Disney's new streaming service that I guess is supposed to compete with Netflix and Apple's new streaming service that comes out this fall. There is a lot of content coming to this if you are already a Disney fan who hasn't tired of anything they produce. Here are some of the shows announced for it. There is High School Musical, the series, The World According to Jeff Goldblum, a cooking show called Be Our Chef, some behind-the-scenes documentaries about making Disney movies, and then a bunch of Star Wars and Marvel shows. On the Marvel side, there is Marvel's Hero Project, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, featuring Scarlet Witch and the Vision, a Loki show, something called Marvel's 616, and Marvel's What If, a show that is adapting those comic book one-offs that explore alternate realities for the Marvel heroes. I think one of the first ones they announced they were doing revolves around Agent Peggy Carter. On the Star Wars side, there is the Mandalorian series from Jon Favreau, Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 7 will be on the service, as will an untitled Rogue One prequel series, making it a prequel to a prequel. Besides Marvel and Star Wars, there will also be a Monsters, Inc. series called Monsters at Work, and Disney is getting all the stars from the movie back for it. And that's just kind of what's confirmed for the first 2 years. Other shows, such as a new Hawkeye series, Mighty Ducks series, a series based on the movie The Sandlot, and one based on Love, Simon for some reason, are all in the planning stages. And none of what I've mentioned touches on how Disney Plus is also going to be the new home for The Simpsons. Will include thousands of hours of Disney TV programming and movies. And all of it is just for $7 a month or $70 for the year. What are you guys feeling about Disney Plus? Like, are you excited for it, or is this something you don't care about?
I'm probably going to subscribe just for the Mel Goldblum thing and season 7 of Clone Wars, and maybe about it. But The Simpsons is pretty cool too. Like, I'll probably just watch the first 10 seasons and call it a day. But
The world, according to Jeff Goldblum, definitely sounds like a meme being turned into a television show.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
There's a lot of stuff there. Like, you just listed like a chunk of it, and there's a lot of stuff there. And I'm almost suffocating under content. Do you know what I mean? And I don't just mean from Disney Plus. I mean from everything. And I almost feel like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this is my age showing again, but like, I almost feel like there's so much there. There's so much on offer. There's so much on all of these channels, not just here, Netflix, Criterion Channel, all of these places, as well as just all the films I've still got to watch and programs I'm behind on. I find it hard to get excited about more new content, because it's just like, I'm going to die before I get to watch all the things I'd like to watch. Do you know what I mean?
It's absolutely true.
And as for the fucking Simpsons, all week I've been thinking about that horrible advert they put out. That the welcome to
Disney.
Yeah. That was like, it was so cynical and jaded. And it's like, we're going to make out we're kind of not part of this company, but we are. And it was just like, what have you fucking become, man? Like, The Simpsons is everything it used to satirize. It used to take the piss out of people pandering to celebrities. All it does is pander to celebrities. It used to rip on pop culture. All the episodes are like Bart becomes a fucking esports celebrity, or Marge joins the UFC. Jesus. Yeah, that's actually happened. I've not made it.
Yes, that's a real episode.
Yeah.
I fell off like probably around the early 20s or so in terms of the season count. So
I think what says a lot. And I think what says a lot about this, the thing, and I'm not going to turn this into like, here's my essay on what's wrong with The Simpsons today. That's like a 3-hour show in itself. But like that advert, that commercial had 2 things in it that drove me up the wall. The first was, it does the I, for one, welcome our overlords thing, which is like, that's their own joke, but they're not using it because it's a good joke. They're using it because it's an internet meme. Mm-hmm. They're not even using it in its original context. They're just using it because they know that's the thing everybody says on the internet now. So it's like they're taking their own drained jokes and reusing them. And second was like, the hat flies off and Dumbo falls on Homer, and it's got to be fucking Dumbo because that's at the cinemas right now. So it's like, oh, we can remind people about Dumbo, and then they might go and buy a ticket to see Dumbo at the cinema. Everything about that commercial was just so fucking fake. It was horrible. And don't get me wrong, Simpsons has always been a Fox program, so it's not like it was ever like The Little Guy. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But the fact was, Simpsons was a satire of family life that was basically saying, life's pretty shitty, governments are corrupt, corporations are bad. At least we're all in it together, and you might have problems with your family, but look, the Simpsons have problems with their families, and they've got annoying neighbors and blah, blah, blah. But all the Simpsons is now is an advert for fucking big money pop culture.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a fucking fake Hollywood sheen of, I could fucking sit here and be like, and then in this episode they did this, and then in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
I think I've kind of just made my point. But when I saw that commercial, it was to me like kind of it was like a sickening, like, not so much, oh, they've joined a big corporation. It was the idea that they're part of like the Disney corporation and part of this like monopoly, but they're still fucking pretending that they're like the little guy fighting against the system.
The last bit of good like Simpsons content I ever like witnessed was probably when Rick and Morty accidentally killed them. So
oh yeah, the opening sequence.
It was great. My headcanon for The Simpsons is the first 10 seasons, then they were killed by Rick and Morty. That's it. It's over.
I mean, I would argue that, play devil's advocate here, I would argue actually up till 12 or 13 was all right. It wasn't like terrible. I think, between 8 and 12, 13 was still okay to watch. Yeah. I think people sometimes are a bit too tough and are like, this is great and this is crap. And I think there's a bit of a area to argue as to when it genuinely became crap. But,
I think if I had to make that argument, I'd probably place it around the time that you did as well. Like you say, like it basically around the time we get into the double figures. I've always said for a long time, one of the big problems is always Family Guy comes along and blows up, and then Simpsons starts chasing the pretender. Simpsons gets scared of the thing that's not the Simpsons and starts trying to be more like that thing instead of staying the course of what it is. I think they start bringing like more sex in, jokes get a little bit edgier. They use way more music cues like of actual songs. This is all stuff that Family Guy was Family Guy's gimmick. And although Simpsons was on top, Simpsons kind of somehow got nervous of its of the thing that came after it and tried to be more like that. And once we get episodes that are like non-canon, where like literally an episode where like Homer cheats on Marge by getting like doped in a bar and then wakes up the next day to find that, I don't want to use the term, but he goes to a bar and he meets a girl and the girl drugs his drink and then fucks him. And that happens. And
is
then
that the Lena Dunham episode, or am I getting confused?
Yeah,
okay. Because there was another one where him and Ned got drunk in Vegas. That really freaked me out as a kid.
I'm thinking the Lena Dunham one. And he wakes up the next morning and she's basically drugged him and had sex with him. And now she's saying she's pregnant. And then at the end, it's like, it's just a dream. It doesn't matter. But the fucking fact he went there shows that they don't know what they're fucking doing.
That I've not watched that one because I've not watched much of the more recent ones, but that's just freaky. Like, what the heck are you doing to The Simpsons?
I should probably clarify as well that I only like the first 10 seasons because those are the ones I own on DVD, and I've rewatched it now like probably 3 or 4 times at this point. So not knocking like the more teen seasons, but it's just I haven't really watched as much. So for me, it just kind of falls off at 10.
I will play devil's advocate to Charlotte's devil's advocate and say that the later seasons, even the ones that are reaching into the 30s, usually have one decent episode, like one episode that I'll watch and I'll laugh and I'll recommend. A few years ago they did the Lego episode, and I genuinely liked that. I thought that was funny. It had a lot of great jokes in it, and they made a joke about the Lego movie that just came out like a few months before the episode did, and so they had to frantically animate that in. There was the Futurama crossover that I thought was good. I thought that was well done, but for the most part, no, I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys. It's just that Marge becomes a UFC fighter. Very recently, an episode this season, because I don't know why I'm still watching it, Homer became a television recapper who was supposed to watch like 30 shows a night and recap them. And so it was just, him working for this website, watching all these shows and giving them all B+, yada, yada, yada. And then he gives Krusty the Clown like a D, and then Krusty tries to kill him. And so, first of all, not only are they just kind of becoming part of pop culture rather than satirizing it, they're also reusing their storylines, because they've already done Homer becomes a critic and the people he's criticizing try to kill him when he became a food critic for the newspaper. So
I love that episode.
Yeah,
I know it's a later one, but I really like that one. Yeah.
But although just because I went off a bit, and I just kind of want to dial this back a little bit. But I'm with you, Charlotte. In like, I think the good parts run later than most people say. You get so many people who say like after season 6 it drops off. The Principal and the Pauper is often considered the final the final episode where everything goes wrong after it. I don't agree. I think we get at least into 10 and 11. I think it's once Family Guy really starts to like pull ahead or like really starts to blow up that the show tries to redefine itself as a competitor. So yeah, around that same year. And I didn't mean to get so angry, but it's just Simpsons was so sharp. It was such a sharp show. And now what have we got? Marge cleans up murder scenes. That's a fucking episode.
I mean, I like that. I do like that concept, but it's probably bad. So,
if I can just say something about this Disney streaming service.
That's what we were talking about.
So I'm in the same area as Chris in that I just think. So I have Netflix, but I don't have Amazon Prime because I don't even understand people who have both Netflix and Amazon Prime. If they're using it for like the streaming service, if they've got Amazon Prime because of the delivery, then that's okay. I can see why. But just like, how do you have the time to watch all these different programs? So I don't think I would use Disney in the traditional sense of I would always have it and always like for months on end, watch stuff regularly. But I can see myself, it's only $8 a month? $7 a month? Yeah, I can see if you think about it, if I want to occasionally have a movie weekend with my boyfriend and we just want to watch Pixar movies, then it would be worth it just to have it for 1 month and then just watch Pixar movies all weekend. Like I can see myself doing that more with it, to be honest, than having it as a continual service. Because when you consider how much it would cost to rent something from Apple, it would be worth it.
Yeah. And I kind of agree with you. I think, I have Hulu right now for 99 cents a month because they were running a deal on Black Friday. So I'll keep that until it runs out. But, I'm basically from this point forward, just going to become, I get a streaming service a month and I just watch whatever's on there. And then for the next month, I go to another one because there's only like maybe 2 to 3 shows on every streaming service that I feel that I really have to watch. And looking at the Disney Plus, I mean, for me, it's really only The Mandalorian is the only one I care about. When it gets their Muppets show, that's probably when I'll subscribe because I love the Muppets. But who knows when that's going to happen. But I mean, Amazon Prime, the only show I care about on it is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Netflix, I can't name any off the top of my head besides Kimmy Schmidt. So I'm sure there's more than just that. But it's really getting to the point where, like Chris said, we're going to die before we watch everything we want to watch. So I might as well just make time to watch a show that I absolutely must. And the only way to do that is to just stream a little bit, one service a month at a time and just dedicate myself to that. And what's really going to have to change for me is I'm going to have to stop being so worried about spoilers, because if I'm not watching a show for 9 months after it airs, I just have to be content with the fact that it may be spoiled for me. So
I just really want a streaming service. In Germany, you cannot watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on any streaming service. It's not on Netflix. It's not on anything.
Oh, that's brutal.
I know. I'm just like, please add it to Netflix, please. Because I think it's available in the UK, but it's not in Germany because apparently nobody knows about it here.
King of the Hill was stuck in a situation like that for a long while, too. Where like no stations here in Canada were even airing it, and it wasn't on any streaming services. So like I couldn't even find like episodes of King of the Hill. It was very upsetting.
I think that's on Hulu.
Yeah, I think it's already on there. But I think the only thing I'm really looking forward to is probably the Clone Wars. Just I love the Clone Wars. I'm so glad that's back. So pretty happy about that.
All right, moving on. Our second story broke just yesterday on Saturday. After revealing the game at E3 last year, EA finally gave us our first look at the many cutscenes we'll be enjoying in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This is, I believe, the third game from EA since it got the exclusive rights to the Star Wars franchise, and first since it blundered the launch of Star Wars Battlefront 2. The games, as we were told multiple times, is a story-driven single-player action game that will have no multiplayer and no microtransactions. According to EA, neither of those aspects will be added post-launch either. The game stars Cameron Monaghan from Showtime's Shameless as a Padawan named Cal who survives Order 66 and must continue to survive as Jedi are still being haunted. The game will also feature Deborah Wilson from Mad TV, who doesn't get nearly enough work. She is fucking hilarious. The game is being developed by Respawn, which is, I mean, it's a good thing because they are really good at what they do at, if Apex Legends and Titanfall 2 are any indication. But it is a melee-based action game, which is a bit outside of the developer's wheelhouse. No gameplay was shown off, but E3 is right around the corner. And it will be releasing for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC this fall. What did you guys think of the trailer?
I'm pretty excited. I'm going to talk more about it on Impulse, but the one thing that I'm just baffled by, just kind of miffed and very upset by, outside of the news, I love Respawn, and I'm excited for this game, but I do have to ask, why the fuck did you kill off Visceral and get rid of Amy Hennig and shut down their game that also was a single-player focused, story-focused Star Wars game? What was the logic there? If you're releasing one now, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think this game is definitely reactive to the controversy that happened with Star Wars Battlefront 2. And it didn't happen soon enough. That reaction didn't happen soon enough to save their project, which, like you said, was single player. It was story driven. I think their game had no Jedi in it whatsoever, but it was just set in the Star Wars universe as a series of heists, which sounds fucking awesome.
I don't know anything about Star Wars because this could be me talking out my ass, but could it be another, is it Metroid Prime 4, where they were like, this is going badly, we're just going to scrap the whole thing and start again? Theoretically, even if it's Amy Hennig, it could have not been panning out very well. From
what she has said and from what EA, their little PR statement said, at the time, it boiled down to, we're after games as a service. We're after a multiplayer thing. And they just weren't happy with the single player direction of it. This feels like a response to all that. Not only in terms of Battlefront 2, this feels like a response company-wide to EA's stance on video games lately. Because if you think about it, they haven't done a single-player, story-driven game in years.
Right.
Every game has had a multiplayer component, including Mass Effect. And this all feels like maybe a response to that. And I think they're going to see how well this does before they make any other further moves. Because EA is, they are in hot water.
Chris, you have anything?
No.
Okay.
I am curious if it'll be a third person, over the shoulder kind of deal, or a first person game. Because in the trailer, they distinctly show off wall running. That's very much a Titanfall thing. And I can't help but think maybe they're trying to rework some of that wall running stuff into the game, which maybe gives me the hint that it'll be first person perspective with cutscenes in the third person. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Oh God, I hope not.
I don't
want a first person melee action game.
I absolutely do. The Jedi Knight games are far better than the Unleashed games, in my opinion. The old Jedi Knight games with the lightsaber combat and be able to dismember stormtroopers stuff in first person with a lightsaber was fantastic. So if it's more of that with wall running and stuff and being able to cut up dudes with a lightsaber, I'm all for it.
Finally, the biggest news to come out of Star Wars Celebration was our first look at what will be the final movie of the Skywalker saga. Episode 9 has officially been titled Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which is leading to a lot of speculation that is clogging the fuck out of my Twitter feed right now. The movie features the return of Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian. Kerry Russell will be in an unspecified role. There is a new droid that'll be turned into a toy and sold for $100. And spoilers if you didn't see the trailer, but at the end of it has Emperor Palpatine's laugh, so he may be coming back in some shape or form. My favorite part of the trailer was the tagline, "Every generation has a legend," which kind of might be true, but it seems like this generation's legend has been going on for about 42 years now. I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm not hyper obsessed with it like some people, but I was really, I'm excited for it. I saw that trailer and I'm like, oh, this is fucking dope. I don't think it's going to be as transformative as the Last Jedi was. J.J. Abrams isn't exactly an adventurous director, and I've never been disappointed with one of his films, but I've actually never been blown away by one either. So I guess we'll go into this trailer now. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on it.
I'm really easy with this. I just want it to be a great film. I know that's an obvious statement, but in the lead up to The Force Awakens coming out, I've got a lot of friends who are very, very passionate about Star Wars, and they don't like the prequel trilogy. And I don't think it's just cool to say those films are bad. I think they're fucking awful. But I've got friends who are super passionate about it, and they were really concerned. And I was telling them all for 2 years, Force Awakens will be great. I was like so adamant about it. I was like, I just know it will. I was like, I'm looking at the Marvel films and how those kind of films look, like how Thor looks, because that has a lot of intergalactic stuff in. And I trusted Abrams. I was just like, Force Awakens is going to be great. Trust me. And then my friend saw it and I saw it and we all think it's great. And then Last Jedi, I don't really care for. And I'm not going to go into the details here, but I just don't. I think it's a really, really average movie. So all I care about with this is just that it's great. They can do what they want with the story. They can do this, or as long as it all comes together, as long as it's well told, and as long as I just find it exciting. Like, the only other point I have to make is I thought it was really funny on Twitter, because I haven't watched the trailer because I don't watch like modern trailers. Mm-hmm. But on Twitter, there was in the sidebar, it said Star Wars trailer, and then beneath it said surprise character teased for movie, and then below that was the hashtag Emperor, and below that was the hashtag Palpatine.
Wow, this is why Twitter's a mistake.
Nice.
Twitter's the worst.
There was some interesting comments made from Eider afterwards, stating that like Star Wars would be going on a hiatus in terms of the films after this is out. So probably, for not very long, but it's interesting to note that they want to maybe pump the brakes a little.
Okay, well, you're jumping ahead here, but actually, I have a theory on that.
Oh, okay.
So after this film comes out, I have no doubt that Kathleen Kennedy is probably going to be let go from Lucasfilm. Not because she's going to be fired for doing a bad job, but just because her contract will be up and they'll probably want to move on to someone else. I think when Disney says they're going on hiatus, it's actually kind of more of a short break, because Disney, if it could, would turn the Star Wars franchise into a Marvel-like cinematic universe. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that it would do that. The MCU has made $18 billion in 12 years. The Star Wars series has made half of that. It's not going to, obviously, because the audiences, I think they see Star Wars and Marvel differently, and they wouldn't kind of come together on that. And Solo really put a damper on their plans. But I think this hiatus will probably only be about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's what I figured too.
Because Disney just bought 20th Century Fox, which means it now owns Avatar. And Avatar 2 and Avatar 3 both come out in December 2020
4 and 5.
And December 2021. 4 and 5 only get made if 2 and 3 are good. Because Disney releases Star Wars films in December, or at least that's when they're successful, they wouldn't want to have these two films competing with one another, and they certainly wouldn't want to move them and lessen their chance of breaking $1 billion or $2 billion at the box office. So I think that is probably the more likely reason why it's going on hiatus, just to make room for Avatar. So Avatar can be the big giant sci-fi franchise for a few years.
Sure, but like winding back to the opinions on Star Wars, I thought Force Awakens was okay. I didn't really care about Last Jedi all that much. At this point, I'm more excited for what they do next.
Yeah.
I am so over seeing these characters from the original trilogy time and time again. Like, I want to see new stuff. If that even means a completely new, like, concept and idea for the whole series. Like, I don't know, just something new.
Well, there are two trilogies in the planning stages. One by the Game of Thrones team and one by Rian Johnson, I think that's his name, director of The Last Jedi. So, I mean, there's is it pronounced Ryan? Okay. Rian Johnson. So there's certainly, at least 6 more Star Wars films planned that are not going to touch on Skywalkers. So,
and I am happy that like a video game is, a story driven game is being made again, because as much as I love Star Wars, I think my favorite Star Wars content was always that expanded universe stuff, the comics, the games, some of the shows. Like Clone Wars, for example. Yeah. Like that stuff to me is like peak Star Wars. Like Knights of the Old Republic, to me, anyways, growing up was peak Star Wars. I'm sure some people, they love the original trilogies. That's what they grew up with. But for me, I don't know. I grew up on that. So I'm hoping at some point this EA deal comes to an end.
Yes.
And they just make that open to more developers, because I would love to see more Star Wars games in general.
Rogue Squadron 4, baby. Charlotte, you have any thoughts on it? Or do you just not care about Star Wars?
I don't really have many thoughts on Star Wars.
Okay, that's fine.
I watched a few of the films when I was a kid, but it's one of those moments, that and Pirates of the Caribbean, where lots of things was going on screen and lots of explosions and bright lights, and I was just sat there thinking, I am so bored. Like, there's so much going on screen, and yet I am so bored.
That for me is basically the prequels and these recent movies. So that's a hot take maybe, but hey.
So J.J. Abrams said he was able to incorporate Carrie Fisher into the film using old footage that they had shot of her to give her a proper send-off. It's unclear of how he went about doing this, as we are told she would not be digitally recreated. But as luck would have it, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a girl who knows a guy who's blowing JJ's assistant, and that's actually able to get us some exclusive audio of Leia dialogue they'll be using in the film. You guys like to hear that?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
This holiday is yours, but we all share with you the hope that this day brings us closer to freedom and to harmony and to peace. No matter how different we appear, we're all the same in our struggle against the powers of evil and darkness. I hope that this day will always be a day of joy in which we can reconfirm our dedication and our courage, and more than anything else, our love for one another. This is the promise of the Tree of Life.
Yeah, sounds great, doesn't it?
Oh, Jesus.
That definitely does not sound like some coked up dialogue right there.
Episode 10, Life Day, baby.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, so that's all I get for the news, which means it's time for the Podtoid question of the week.
When is modern science going to find a cure for a woman's mouth?
Sorry, that is not the Podtoid question of the week.
Whoa.
Damn, CJ turned heel. Holy shit.
30 Rock's been on my mind this week. That's one of the quotes. This week's question has to do with video games in real life. Last week, we learned a millionaire...
CJ,
I'm not going to live that one down, am I?
Nope.
Last week, we learned a millionaire is supposedly trying to organize a real-life battle royale on an island using airsoft guns instead of real guns. So my question to you is, if you were an anonymous millionaire and had a website catering to your every whim, which video game or video game genre would you like to see recreated in real life?
Red Dead Redemption. I would recreate the town. I would demand that somebody says, look, if somebody's like robbing a bank, you need to say, this town is country strong at the top of your lungs. I'd live there, man. I'd just never leave.
Well, like if you had the money, you could probably like make a time machine, and then you wouldn't even have to build.
Hell yeah!
You could just go and live there and like die age 21.
I could go back to 1899 and say I'm country strong.
I would do Elite Beat Agents and just hire 3 guys to follow me everywhere I go, cheering me on for whatever I do. I think that would be the perfect thing. Just 3 guys in suits, cheering to, I don't know, Cardi B as I shop for groceries or something.
I would go really boring and like, I just want a simple life. Like, if I have a load of money, I just want a simple life. But I'm a workaholic, so I'd still want to work. So I think there's an upcoming game which I'm really excited for called Coffee Talk, which is sort of like Valhalla, but you're serving coffee and tea to like these half-human people, and you're talking to them about their lives and all the complicated stuff going on in their lives. So if I had all the money in the world, I would just become a barista in a cafe for like peanuts and like just listen to people who are nice talk about their lives. Because I know that being like a barkeeper or like a barista in real life is absolutely awful, probably, from all the nonsense and bratty customers. But yeah. I would have a nice cafe and I would serve nice drinks and have nice customers.
Chris?
Final fight.
You just want to walk around the street beating the shit out of people?
Yeah.
Eating turkeys out of garbage cans? That's Final Fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final fight.
All right. So we are just about out of time, but before we go, Chris, you have a community shout out?
Yes, I do. I'll do this because Occams isn't with us. Just temporarily. He's not died or anything, but he's just not with us right now.
Well, he might have killed himself after all the Fox News, so find out next week.
Oh,
I heard he ate a lot. I heard he ate a lot. Yeah. Community shout outs to Uncle Arena Fighter, who recently announced that they got an internship as a writer at a geek magazine. I'm not sure if that's just a geek magazine or there is an actual magazine called Geek. I don't know, but congratulations for that. Hope it works out for you. And also to Seymour, who's cutting those apron strings and getting himself an apartment.
Nice.
So I look forward to having no money, I guess.
I just want to do a quick shout out to our own Chris Hovermail, who recently got a programming job that he's going to start next month. I know he's been looking for like a real good paying job for a while, so I'm so happy he finally got one. And then also I just want to do a thank you to Joel Peterson. He's been a writer on Destructoid for as long as you have, Chris, right?
Yeah, like literally the same week we both started.
Yeah, and he's been having some health issues. He has a family to raise, and so he decided to take a step back and is no longer contributing to Destructoid. But I just wanted to thank him for all the contribution he has made, for all the articles he has written, for all the niche hardware he has reviewed over the years. He's been a great guy, and I wish him good health. I wish him the best, and I just hope he doesn't lose his joy of writing, because he's really good, and I really enjoyed working with him. So
yeah,
I bet Joel would get behind my opinions of Altered Beasts, unlike you guys, but whatever.
Anyway, so that is it for this episode of Podtoid. On behalf of Chris, Charlotte, Dan, and myself, thank you for listening, and tune in next week for an all-new episode.